Security Weekly is brought to you by NetSparker, the developers of desktop and cloud-based web application security scanners that enable you to automatically identify vulnerabilities in your web applications and web services. NetSparker scanners employ a unique and dead-accurate vulnerability scanning engine that automatically verifies vulnerabilities with a proof of concept. For more information, visit them on the web at netsparker.com or email them at contact@netsparker.com. ProXPN is the leading VPN service offering free accounts, excellent premium features, and an outstanding commitment to privacy and security online. Use the discount code WEEKLY and save 50% off for life. Tenable Network Security, creators of Nessus, the world's best vulnerability scanner. Jumpstart your security program today and evaluate Security Center CV, the continuous monitoring solution. For more information, visit them on the web at tenable.com. Overwhelmed when it comes time to choose which cigar to smoke? Confused by the differences between 60 ring gauge, Robusto, Corona, and Lancero? Do you yearn to try all the new cigars on the market, but need a guide to tell you where to start? Look no further than the Stogie Geek Show. Hosted by yours truly and Will Cooper, we've made it our mission to educate both new and experienced cigar smokers. Tune in for interviews with leaders in the cigar industry, how-to segments, and weekly cigar reviews. Visit StogieGeeks.com to subscribe to our podcast, watch the live show, and discover our video archives. Stogie Geeks, geeks kicking ash. Welcome back, everyone, to Security Weekly. This is the security news for this week. Larry Pesce and Jack Daniel are here with me this evening to talk about, where do we want to start?
Oh, I have a late-breaking story.
Okay.
Sorry, it didn't make it into the show notes, but I've heard there were some technical difficulties at...
Please don't say Pornhub.
No.
Okay.
Beside Salt Lake City, involving Jack's clicker.
Oh, really? Oh, and Jack dropped off. Apparently, he's having technical difficulties right now.
My joke was wasted. All right, we'll have to come back to this late-breaking news as more information evolves.
All right, well, let's start with hotel security stinking in the
God.
Erin Andrews case. Have you seen this Erin Andrews case? Do you know who Erin Andrews is?
The name is familiar, but...
She's the sports ESPN?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, the reverse peephole.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
But, so, do you know how the guy did it?
He used a reverse peephole camera lens thing.
Yeah, but do you know how he figured out what room she was in? It's like the oldest hotel hack in the book. It's like the stuff that we've done to each other at hotels since the beginning of time we started first going to
I know
cons.
how I would have done it, but how did he do it?
So he calls front desk, hey, can I have Erin Andrews' room, please? And they connect him to her room, and he calls from a house phone in the lobby. And the house phone in the lobby on the caller ID has the room number. So that's like a hack, right? Albeit a not very good one and a really old one.
See, how I do it now is I go to connect to the Wi-Fi, and it says, please enter your last name and room number.
Yeah.
To get access to the Wi-Fi. Well, I know your last name.
Right.
I just now need to fuzz the room number until I get a success.
There you go. Which, I mean, it depends. I mean, if you're even in a really big hotel, that's not even a whole lot of fuzzing, right?
No,
even if it's a couple of thousand rooms.
1,000 rooms is 1,000 numbers. Well,
Right.
you can even do some smart math. You go and look at your floor.
There's no 13th floor usually
Depending.
in hotels. You can skip that out.
Yep, and then you go and look at your floor and find out how many rooms are on your floor. So it's typically between 1 and 50 something.
Right.
And then you multiply that by the number of floors, and that's
Yeah,
really
so you
easy to
narrow
brute
your
force.
scope. Yeah.
Hell, you could brute force that manually without burp, and
Well, you'd be there for a while, but
not all that long.
yeah, you might get lucky. You never know. If you know enough about the person, you might get lucky. If you know they like to stay on a lower floor or a higher floor or whatever. Yeah. So that's how I figured out what room she was in, and then he used the maid trick. So he was walking by the room and saw the maid starts cleaning the room next door, so he knew the room next door to her was vacant. He knew which room was vacant and requested that room.
Oh.
And then somehow the peephole thing where what did you remove the peephole?
No. So there's a lens that basically undoes the effects of when you look through the lens in reverse.
Is that why the quality was so bad?
Yeah.
Not that I looked at the pictures or anything, but
There's pictures?
there's video. But So I've heard.
Be right back.
Yeah. So I've heard. It's not even worth looking up, to be honest with you. I mean, the quality is so poor. But, I mean, I can understand you have a certain expectation of privacy at a hotel. And we've talked about multiple ways in which that privacy, basically the hotel was hacked, albeit very unsophisticated hacks, was hacked.
Privacy is dead.
To be able to accomplish this. So I thought I would mention it because it mentioned some of the hotel hacks that we've kind of pranks we played on each other over the years.
Yep. Fun stuff.
I don't know. I think Jack is we're trying to get Jack back. Okay.
He must be having problems with his clicker again.
Oh, Jeremiah Grossman gave his notice at White Hat.
What?
Did you see that? Oh. So someone tweeted, like, first it was H.D. Moore, then it was Trey Ford, then it was Paul, me, and then it was Jeremiah Grossman. And they're like, this is the year of, like, people, like, leaving what they were doing and going on to something else.
Yep. And all of them were startups, weren't they?
Well, no. Trey did not announce
where he was going.
And neither has Jeremiah Grossman. Mm-hmm. And HD has just whatever he said publicly.
Something about startups.
Yeah, something about going to work for a company that helps
with startups.
Yeah, and that's all he said. So, yeah, interesting. So you can go read his. I thought it was interesting to read other people's articles about them leaving a company they had been at for a while because I wrote my own. So I was kind of comparing notes. So. So we covered a little bit about AV in the interview with Dennis Fisher.
Yeah.
But this, this article was kind of interesting because Dave Eitel even is one of the authors. And we all know Dave to be very outspoken when it comes to security.
Yes.
Not afraid to speak his mind. So it's a good read about antivirus and some of the things that Jack, talks about. I think it's Gene Spafford that he always references in saying, the more software that we add, the more potential security vulnerabilities we add, and as you add AV. So it talks about that in a smart way.
Yep. And just recently, there's been a lot of attacks against various antivirus products.
Yep.
Privilege escalation, remote compromise, all of that stuff.
Even more interesting in this article is they specifically call out 3 pieces of software that Windows users should use. Some type of domestic AV, like one born and grown here in the U.S., Microsoft's Emmet, and a monitoring daemon that will export logs and watches for new unrecognized binaries or DLLs, which is interesting. Then they talk about virtualization, like Cubes OS, which is every desktop application gets its own dedicated VM through Zen, which we've talked about virtualization is helping solve this problem, although I haven't seen anything like really take off. Mm-hmm. Like VMware had that, whatever it was that I can't think of, where like basically you log into the VM remotely and do your thing. I haven't seen that take off in enterprises. The enterprises I talk to, no one if you are using that successfully, some type of virtualization to help endpoint security, believe me, send us email. We want to hear about it. Maybe we'll even bring you on the show. And then they talk about basically being compromised is no longer an if, but a when, and moving away from signature-based models and realizing you're compromised. Basically supporting my new startup offensive countermeasures.
Yay!
And other technologies that look at you've already been hacked. So I thought it was a really good article from Dark Reading, so you should go check that out. What else do we have? What else do we want to talk about? When Jack is, I don't know if Jack's going to come.
Hello?
Oh,
am I here?
Yes. I can hear you.
Sorry, I have no idea. Yeah. Larry said something, and both my phone and Skype on both the phone and laptop went boom.
Wow! Was it the clicker that did it?
Did your clicker go out too?
Yeah.
What happened to your clicker, Jack?
Oh, I just started a presentation this morning and plugged my new clicker in, which has worked great for the past 6 weeks and wouldn't do anything. Got back to the hotel room this afternoon. Works fine. Works fine as long as I'm not trying to present with my presentation remote.
Okay, yeah, because I was going to say, it seems like a lot of people are, breaking news, Jack's clicker doesn't work.
Oh, was that trending on Twitter today?
It was.
Your clicker was trending, Jack.
That's it was. So I have a lovely Logitech after my old one died after years. It's been working great. And
Yeah,
so
see,
I got
that's the
back to the
thing.
room.
See, that happens, Jack. When it gets old, it needs a little bit of
Yeah,
maintenance.
Yeah, but that's the thing. You
Yeah.
can't let your clicker die because then the new one you get will
Yeah.
not work.
Yeah, I don't
It's
know.
like it's like the penis pump.
I've been using the same clicker since like. Well, let's not talk about how long I've been using my clicker because it's gonna die the next time I go present. I've cursed it.
Don't curse it. Yeah, don't curse the clicker.
Let's talk about patch management since Jack's here, and you still work
Jack's
for Tenable
favorite.
Network Security,
Favorite.
and it's our
Patch
favorite
management.
topic. So here's the rub. So patch management.
Wait. So here's the rub,
Here's
or
the rub.
here's the rub.
Here's the rub.
Dirty air quotes.
It says a study showed that at least some of the time, 67% of security teams have a difficult time understanding which patch needs to be applied to which system. That's made even more complicated by embedded products such as Adobe Flash. Patches released with Google Chrome updates. 86% of the respondents said that it made it more difficult to understand the impact of the patch. And I think if you're spending time trying to understand the impact of a patch by reading the advisory or reverse engineering, you're doing it wrong and you failed already. You just have to test it. You have to deploy it. You have to deploy it to select users and then gauge the impact.
Yes.
It's super frustrating on the browser side. And it's interesting to use that technology because the browser incorporates so many different technologies, Java, Flash, Silverlight, et cetera. Et cetera.
Wow, it's plural.
Yeah, well, it's had vulnerabilities lately. Some people still use it too, et cetera. All come into play. Chances are users will still be able to browse the web. However, it's when they go access that internal
Mission
application
critical.
that's mission critical that these updates fall down, and all of a sudden you deploy this patch to 10,000 people.
All that need
9,000 are okay, but it's that 1,000 that represent, maybe your sales department, maybe your accounts payable and receivable, that can really impact the business. And this is
that one critical group that uses one function that
Right.
nobody else uses that's affected by the patch.
and that's where the rub is, really, right? We can sit here all day as security professionals who are on the outside looking in and go, you should patch all your stuff. But these are some of the struggles that we have today.
Yep. The struggles, they're real.
And I solving this problem is not easy.
No,
I don't see any. There's no easy win. I mean, there's a lot of work involved in this. I don't see any easy wins.
You can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jack.
Larry.
Go ahead. No,
Go ahead,
Jack.
Jack.
I was going to say you have to look at the bulletins, but you can't expect much from them. And with
No.
Microsoft, you expect less and less every year.
Yep.
But if it says it's a kernel mode driver, or it's updating fonts or something, you're like, we're going to do extra special testing on this one, but that's not going to cover it. There's things that seem innocuous that break other stuff. I mean, you talk about mission critical things. Either of you remember the Internet Explorer patch like 11 years ago that broke SAP?
Yes.
It was, and Microsoft was and is an SAP customer. For those that don't know what SAP is, good for you. And for those who do, the thought of breaking SAP throughout your enterprise is making you weep.
Right.
And that was the way Internet Explorer handled hyperlinks because of a patent dispute. So it's like, it's just gonna.
Oh, interesting.
Some things,
I'd forgotten
some
about that
things might, it was the EOLIS patent. Some things might take an extra click was basically what everybody said. It's no big deal. Some stuff might take an extra click, except for all of those mission critical custom designed web front ends for things where it clicked for you and you couldn't make the second click. And it's a long time ago, but patch quality got better and better, and now I don't think patch quality is getting better at Microsoft in particular. But you don't know, and there's so much legacy stuff. Again, Paul, like you said, it's great to say patch everything,
Right.
Patch everything right away. That's not realistic, and it's also it's easy to say well, what you should do is you should just abandon all your old OSs, move everybody to Windows 10. Active Directory, because the combination of those two solves authentication problems. And it, it gives you security levels that you can't reach yourself if you run an Active Directory. And I've actually heard people say this, and they did work for Microsoft. I'm like, that's wonderful.
No, I mean, granted,
out here in the real world, we're all high-fiving as we get people up to Windows 7, which is an extended support now.
One of my first major IT projects was converting from OS2 Warp to, it had to be Windows 95, 98. And I remember how much work that was. And now you talk about going from Windows XP to Windows 10 or whatever Windows you're on to Windows 10. I only had, 40 desktops, right? What if you have 10,000 desktops and 30% or 40% of your workforce is mobile workers, remote workers? Those scenarios exist more and more today. Doing an OS upgrade like you're talking about, Jack, as you well know, and Larry, you well know, like even with today's technology, it's not cake. It's not a cakewalk, right? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Unless technology is really,
you've got to even if you have all the management tools, you're talking about pushing a ton of data around the network.
Mm-hmm.
And to your point, Paul, that only gets the devices which are connected on high-speed links, directly attached on high-speed links. And you're talking about moving a ton of stuff around. And that doesn't work for the folks, the systems that are directly attached on remote links or low-speed links, and forget the remote workers.
Right.
Yeah. Can you imagine when you instead of trying to get Internet Explorer and Firefox and Office updated when they connect for 30 minutes at the airport and an hour and a half at night at the hotel?
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine pushing down an OS and then hoping it works?
Yeah. Well, everyone just needs to work off their phones from now on. Here's a new startup. I don't know if anyone's working on this or not, but I was like, it'd be really cool if inside of my phone, like I had a projector, right? And it projected on a wall, and then it was like interactive, so I could use my finger as like the pointer. So I can get that big screen off of my phone with like a little projector. Because really the only problem I have with my phone, like there's a ton of horsepower in it. Mm-hmm. Most of the apps work okay. I mean, there's varying degrees of success with apps, but most, like if I use software like, Insightly or Gmail, like it's got an app that it works okay, right? So I can do my job, right? But the problem I have is the form factor is still, even on a tablet, small.
Yep.
What if you had a projector, right? And I want to project on the wall, and then I just want to interact with my applications.
There was a time that there was a phone that made a projector into the phone. The problem is
battery life. I'm sure would be an issue.
Battery life and brightness. I've had an opportunity to use one of those Pico projectors, and it was awesome until you turn the lights on,
right,
and had the window shades up.
Yeah, so if I'm sitting in an airport, I can't control the light. Well,
right.
Most people
anything that
most people can't control the lights.
But with more smart light bulbs, you will be able to soon.
yes. The problem is the projector capability just wasn't quite there at the time. This is a couple years ago.
And what do you do in an airplane? Like project on the back of the seat? I mean, I guess you could. That might work.
Yep.
Until they turn the lights on.
Right. But you pull the shades down, and still, but battery life is also a factor as well. And then the second one that's a problem is the being able to do
to do stuff, right?
Yeah,
I think that would be cool. I think that would put the
they
desk.
make the laser keyboards that shine on
I've
the
seen
desk
those.
when you do
that looks weird. I don't know if I could do that.
Yeah, because there's no tactile feedback or anything. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, I don't know because we're old school, man. We need. I like a keyboard.
I like
it.
The IBM keyboards with the big clackety chickeny keys.
Clackety clackety chicklet. Oh yeah, baby.
I have one of those and I reserve it for.
Like your special hacking moments, like when you got to do a pen test and you got to really be like on, you take it out of its case and there's like a light that,
yeah, it's like opening the briefcase at the end of Pulp Fiction.
Yes, that's exactly what it's like.
Yeah, I have a
and
friend.
Then you just hacking away like clunk, 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 clunk.
I have a friend that I got one of those too, and she actually destroyed it.
Ooh, why?
Chain smoking cigarettes over the keyboard.
Oh yeah, because it's not friendly to that.
Nope.
Right.
Yeah, mechanical contacts. Yeah.
Right. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yep. Just love them.
Oh, do we have to talk about SSL?
We probably should.
Again, I mean, because I saw the article that said that the vulnerability remains a high risk for the drowned vulnerability. Yeah. Was that basically? I mean, we determined last week that it wasn't high risk, but maybe that's just us. I don't know.
I think it's high risk in certain situations. But to me,
well, that's like every vulnerability could be high risk for someone.
True. This is true.
Right.
So I didn't do a ton of looking into it. I knew, I'm like, oh crap, yet another SSL vulnerability, and I'm like, why do I care about SSL? We should all be on TLS.
Yeah,
we're not.
Oh, we covered that last week.
Yeah. There's another whole conversation. It's like, well, they're SSL vulns. I don't care. I'm sure everybody is only running TLS, 1.2 and up. So
right, yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure that no one on the internet is exposing TFTP through their firewalls, right? I mean, we all saw Joff's great segment on how to set up a firewall.
None.
No,
Robert Graham, where are you?
Over 500,000, and some researchers proved that you could now use TFTP for distributed denial of service attacks, amplified denial of service attacks, because certain requests to the TFTP protocol submit small amounts of data and get back 5 or 6 responses. So hooray for TFTP, hooray for old protocols.
Hooray for denial of service amplification.
Well, we had the interview with, who was the woman that came on the end of last year and talked about NTP?
Yeah, that that was one of the best interviews of 2015.
It really was. She talked about, if you want to hear about NTP amplification, you can, I'll look it up while we're talking, but this one is TFTP. Sharon Goldberg, thank you. Sharon Goldberg came on the end of last year and talked about that. So, and this is TFTP. So, hooray! Oh, you'll love this one, Larry.
Yeah.
So apparently and I believe the way this works is I can take a picture of your finger, print it out on an inkjet printer, and you're not shy with your finger around me. You're always either flicking me off or asking me to sniff it. You can take a picture of your finger and then print it out on an inkjet printer and then hold it up to biometric fingerprint authentication, and it will work. And they did it with a ton of different devices, and it worked on a lot of them.
I hate to say this, but if you think back, this is something that Nick was doing back when he was on the show.
Yeah, he was messing around with biometrics.
He was taking fingerprints and converting them to black and white and printing them out and then putting the warm body behind another.
Yes.
So he was essentially taping an inkjet print of a fingerprint to his finger and was bypassing.
But I mean, the whole thing is you got to get a picture of my finger, right? And then you got to have physical access to my device.
Well, if you're dead, that's pretty easy.
Yes.
Maybe the FBI should. Never mind. No fingerprint scanner in the iPhone 6C.
Oh, that's right.
Who buys an iPhone 6C? Oh, right. The people that don't want
a fingerprint. Yes. Yeah. So anyway, I thought that was interesting.
Not a new attack, but certainly interesting that it's still potentially possible. That was the other one that Nick was playing with along those biometrics was you'd use your face. To be able to
facial recognition. I haven't heard a lot about facial recognition because it's totally. Is it bogus?
Well,
is it not?
I don't. One of my older Android devices enables it so you can do facial recognition to unlock your device. And what Nick was doing was taking a picture of people and using the picture printed out from an inkjet printer to unlock their devices.
Yes.
Yep.
Well, the retina scanners too were popular for a while.
Yep.
But it turns out pregnant women, that breaks.
Yeah. That was the story that I heard too, retina scanners.
We covered that years ago.
Retina or iris, they were able to detect because as soon as a woman becomes pregnant,
it changes the signature.
Yep.
The security market will exceed, according to this article, $170 billion by 2020. What do you think about that, Jack?
A study that has a number in it that's really big. Who commissioned it and who did it, and how many of the known flaws in the data set did they disclose? And this is what I refer to as a rectilinear number. For those who are familiar with the geometric term, that's like using parallax error in lenses. You can take a picture of a tall building and it looks square. You know, that's rectilinear, RECTIL. This is rectal linear, RECTAL. In that somebody pulled these numbers right out of their ass.
Yep, I knew you were going there.
Rectilinear, right out of their ass.
Well, Gardner,
I don't know.
Gardner offered similar figures in its November figures. Security spend will be $75 billion, which is the number that I've been using.
I mean, it's going more. What would I missed RSA for the first time in a decade last week, and I don't know how much I missed it, but
you missed the TogaCon. That's about it.
I missed seeing friends, but
and you missed the totally epic bourbon tasting at No Starch Press.
Yeah, that's always a good time.
Yep.
But I was on a cruise ship with my wife in places like Trujillo, Honduras, and Guatemala, and wandering through Mayan ruins and stuff. It was pretty cool. But I heard the numbers between 40 and 41,000 people.
Yeah.
I heard somewhere like 800 exhibitors. I don't know how they count because there aren't that many booths or whatever. But it was.
Let's put it this way.
There's a lot of money being spent.
Yeah, let's put it this way, Jack. They know how to count because I did a talk in the IoT ICS sandbox.
Oh yeah, how did that go?
I think it went really well. I had lots of fun. The audience had lots of fun, and they told me exactly how many people I had in attendance in a standing room only crowd with no badge scanning.
They have the metrics for doing that.
They have people that count the crowd.
Wow.
Yeah. Crowd counter.
That's pretty cool. Kind of
they
creepy.
have to.
Cool.
They need the metrics, but also that's San Francisco. If the fire marshal walks in and counts a different number and it's over room capacity, it gets really ugly.
Yep.
I might have spent an afternoon saying yes sir and no sir to a fire marshal at a much smaller conference, so I feel the pain there. Yeah. But there's yes sir, no sir. But yeah, there's a lot of money. But it comes back to, is measuring it by money the right thing to do?
Mm-hmm.
If you're in the business, as we are, that's one measure of the success of the business you're in. But of the underlying goal of securing those who we are responsible for securing, dollars isn't a good isn't a good metric. I don't know what is, but I don't think it looks as rosy as people, as the giant dollar values. I don't think there's money. Although there was an article that GCHQ spent $1 billion, that basically the UK, similar to NSA, and they've spent $1 billion during times of austerity, and said they just haven't spent enough, and they're going to have to throw a lot more money at it, and a lot more beyond just money, because throwing money at it by itself doesn't work. So it's like, turns out this is hard. Who knew?
Opera becomes the first major web browser to introduce a native ad blocking feature. And I mean, let's face it, web page ads can be really super annoying, and I'm on both sides of the fence on this particular issue, but there's lots of different ads, and some are more annoying than others. Certainly, Reddit ads are not as annoying as the ads that come up and take over your entire browser, or the malicious ads that take your browser to new and really dark and dirty places.
Right. Well, the malicious ads, the compromised ad servers are a bigger and bigger problem,
right?
Especially for waterhole attacks. If you're in an industry and people go to like one of the Crane publications, it's a specialty in automotive or whatever else.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to pop Crane. You can look at who they use for ad rotators and pop them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a real issue. And putting it in the browser has certain value, but one of the things I miss every time I go on the road is I always have like more ads. It's like, why do I have? Oh, that's right, because I don't get them all at the gateway, but I use, I use a home multifunction device that I block ads both by protocol and by URL, and I block a ton of ads at the gateway. So that means the phones are much cleaner. The web browsing experience, everything's just faster.
Mm-hmm.
The free games you're too cheap to give them 99 cents for to get rid of the ads. The ads, go away, and sometimes. So Yeah, I think it's a good move for them. I don't know how many people use that browser. I don't know if that's going to make a difference um, in uptake for that. Used to be a cool browser and then it went away.
I know, but I do think it has a security play as well. Part of the reason that I think you block ads the way you do, Jack, and why I always run a web browser with an ad blocker on it is chances are it's going to block an ad that's malicious.
Yeah.
Right?
Which we're seeing more and more of.
Absolutely.
Yeah, don't go for the site itself. Go for the ad agency, which is likely not taking the time to secure itself.
And if you ever use Facebook on your phone and click the link, it's dangerous, dude. It's like roulette, man. Like Russian roulette. Like, I'm going to click this link, and then it's like, oh, my God, pop-ups and, the iPhone pop-ups like, hey, you want to update your phone? Reboot.
Yeah, no, I did one of those the other day. I'm sitting there taking a crap reading my iPhone because, that's where the best place to read Facebook is,
Absolutely.
right? And I clicked on one of these links, and then, the Facebook app crashed.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh, fuck. Power off.
Yeah.
No.
Chances are if it crashed, their exploit might have crashed too.
But still.
Yeah.
That was
the Facebook app just crashes, though.
That was the only time I've ever had a crash.
It's the worst. I need to get a black phone or something because it's bad.
Mine's been fine.
It's bad.
It's probably because they're interested in keeping it up now that they've got the back door on it.
This is true. This is true. Yeah. So that kind of thing scares me.
Yep.
There's no way in the Facebook app, and a lot of other apps too, like even the Gmail app, like when you click a link, it uses like its own, like you're still browser. In the app, but it's some internal, there must be a...
Yeah, Twitter the same way.
Yeah, and you can't tell it to go to an external browser. Because I would totally use Opera on my phone if I could make other apps
use
that, and then I'd have the ad blocker, and I'd feel a little better about myself anyway.
Yep.
Well, I'd feel better about security on my phone. I don't know if I'd feel better about myself because I'm still reading Facebook, which makes me feel not better about myself.
Yeah, exactly. We need to get you a Pavlok, so every time you start reading Facebook, you can zap yourself.
Zap myself. Is that what it's called? A
Pavlok. Yep.
It connects to my wrist.
Yeah, it's in a watch form factor.
Watch form factor, and does it talk to my phone?
It can use Bluetooth Low Energy to talk to your phone. Yes, we talked about the failures of Bluetooth Low Energy.
Yeah.
Yes, I have captures.
Yeah.
Yes, I...
So, like, when I do something on my phone?
Well, no. So it has an app on the phone, which you can use to change the settings, and you can change the shock value.
Yep.
You can also do it so that it has various notifications and testing, all of that. There's also an API so that you can integrate it with other apps and so forth. There's an alarm clock app that basically, if you have a hard time getting out of bed in the morning, you use
zap you?
This alarm clock app, and it will zap the shit out of you until you get out of bed, which is fully configurable. The other one, the big one, is that you want to be able to control it with the app. So the deal is that the way I see it is there's two, and Mike Poor has the Pavlok, and he just got it and introduced me to it, and mine's on order.
And what does he use the Pavlok for?
So he's trying to break himself of a habit. And every time he thinks or subconsciously thinks about going and breaking this habit, he zaps himself.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And then once that
you can push a button and zap yourself.
Yeah, you push a button on the device, and it's the top of the device, so you press on the top of the device, and it's not like a tap. You have to actually do it pretty good.
I gotcha. So you're self-Pavloving yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the point that Mike and I were having a discussion. Mike's comment was, if you do it yourself, it's conditioning. If someone else does it, it's torture.
Yeah.
Now, that said, there's some wiggle room to that. So my thing is that potentially, if I'm looking to break myself of a habit, I have to be honest about it.
Right.
But I may not be honest about it. So I give my significant other control of my Pavlok with their device. So, like, if I want to break myself of biting my nails, and I bite my nails, and I go, shit, zap, okay. And zap. And then I bite my nails, I'm like, I'm just not going to press the fucking button.
Right.
My wife sees me and zap. All right, I get it. Yeah, all right. So,
that's pretty funny.
Yeah. But
it sounds like it could be totally hacked. So you can just zap people.
Now,
because that's what I would want to do.
That's the thing. We could be totally hacked, but I know a really smart guy that helped them develop the prototype.
Interesting.
Dan Kaminsky.
Interesting.
Now, I don't know whether he did any security testing or it was strictly the Pavlovian response that he did the testing of. But Dan Kaminsky was involved in the device, and based on what I saw initially, this could get interesting, but it doesn't mean it's impossible.
Right. That's pretty cool. The inventor of email passed away this week. Ray Tomlinson.
Oh,
Some interesting history in this article.
he saved the @ sign.
Yeah, like how he ended up with the @ sign. That was pretty cool. It was on like the limited keyboard that he had at the time. What did they call it? Jack probably invented it or something.
The 98 key XT keyboard?
33 teletype terminal to interact with his
Never mind.
computers had limited.
Teletype.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jack, you remember that, right? It's probably the last time your clicker worked right.
Yeah. It's
We're not going to let Jack's clicker go. I mean, what?
my low energy dongle.
Oh, let's talk about like RSA wrap up posts, Jack, because I know you read all of them.
Here's
right?
my RSA wrap up. I got there the morning of my talk. I spoke. I left. I didn't even make it to the conference floor. Not once.
Wow.
That's the right way to. I don't know. That's
Well, so the author makes a point about cloud, which we've known already. People are going to embrace cloud, get over it. Number 4 is about MSSPs and that we need to use MSSPs more, which I disagree with, but not completely. I think they have their place in certain situations.
They have a valid point, but as I've said for many years, never outsource your core competency, especially if it's incompetence.
Right.
Correct.
Right. Yeah.
Correct.
So that, Jack, I have tested a number of folks that were using one or more MSSPs to do all of their security monitoring and attacks against them via the internet and not going stealthily, going hot and heavy, and as potentially hot and heavy as various tools would allow, resulted in silence from the MSSP.
He makes 2 points that I really like. Number 1, he says we need to get away from product categories. And yes, that. Don't pigeonhole yourself and say, well, I need a firewall, I need an IPS, and I need an antivirus. And look at me, I'm doing security. No, that is not the way it works. Do not pigeonhole yourself into product categories. There have been lots of companies, Gartner, for example, that has tried to create or define what these categories are. And I think the way the landscape is now, figure out what problems you have and then develop processes and procedures and define risk and then find solutions to those problems. And I think there's so much technology on the market. We're blurring the lines, man, between all these different products.
Where was I? And we were having a conversation about something, and it was along the lines, and your process and procedures probably brought me to this, in that, if you have never done security in your organization before and you're doing it now, you're actually in a really good spot. Because you have the opportunity to build all these policies and procedures and deploy the appropriate technologies and appropriate configurations now that will do a really potentially effective job and give you some really great intelligence if done well, as opposed to something that you did 10 years ago with policies, procedures, technologies that you've implemented that was great at the time, but now is complete crap, and you're trying to dig yourself out of the complete crap.
Yep. That's exactly.
So basically, it's along the lines of take your security program and throw it away and start fresh.
Yeah, yeah. I think
fresh.
No, and I agree with. We've followed security for a long time, Larry, and I think that maybe now, maybe not more than ever, but certainly now, I think we're at a time where you need to maybe just think about starting fresh.
Yeah, but starting fresh, but not throwing away the knowledge.
Right.
The
experience.
The institutional knowledge or the industry knowledge from what happened in the past.
Right. Number 2, he said, it's not about the underlying technology. It's about the results of the solution that you're getting. Yes. And I think a lot of us, especially in security, especially, us nerds and geeks, we like to really focus on the tech. Like, what is it? What is it under the covers? And what is it doing? And that's important. I'm not saying that's not important, but almost more important than that, slightly more important than that, is the results, right? And I mean, you could have, so to put it this way, you can have the coolest freaking technology in the world, but if it doesn't produce results, how is that going to help you?
Case in point, many years ago when I was working in healthcare, an organization that I working with that now I look back on it, and it was probably one of the worst products that we could have used for doing what we were doing. But the reporting and the data analytics that were possible out of this tool were fucking awesome. And we had some really smart people that could take that data and give you some really great information. And it really resulted in some really good outcome for security and that the product was crap, but the data that it gave us was awesome.
But you got to be careful too. If the product's crap and it's giving you the wrong information,
right,
that's bad.
Right.
So the underlying technology, like I said, is don't dismiss it. It is important.
Yeah,
but
it's not the end all be all.
It is. I think what's missing in the middle there between the technology and the results is the integrity of the product, right?
Agreed.
Those two have to come together.
Potentially bad at what it did, mostly from system resource and, and that type of perspective.
Yep,
it was really it was decent at what it did. The data that was reliable that it gave us was good, but what the effect that it had on the desktop was probably the absolute worst possible scenario.
I got you.
One thing tangentially related to these things.
It's subtle.
Yeah, subtle.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jack. Tangentially.
The shit you buy and use or license or whatever has to play nice together.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are so many times that people get hung up on the technology and they don't get hung up on whether the technology will talk to other things and whether it fits in your environment, and whether it's going to duplicate effort to do the same thing twice so that you can use this to do that and that to do this. The stuff's got to play well together, because if it doesn't play well together, you're not going to get the results, right? Or you're going to have to put a lot more effort into things. So does stuff play nice is something that I think a lot of folks overlook until they try to make it play nice, and then they just cry and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Larry, one more story and we're going to wrap it up. 2 minutes.
Yeah. Sure. I really like your story number 15.
Cisco joined the residential Broadway Gateway's sole hopeless security club.
Yay!
Announcing not one but 3 vulnerable systems, and this is just another nail in the coffin for embedded systems.
You mean IoT?
And IoT. I know. Again, the HTTP interface was the cause of at least one vulnerability. And like I said before,
That's
I think
different.
Yeah, I think we've got well-written standards and guidelines. They're not perfect, but in a lot of those standards and guidelines, actually all of those standards and guidelines that I've read and been involved with, they all say that you should have a secure way to authenticate to the device, to do management, and that your management of the device or the interface should be locked down and secure, and that seems to be where we fall down in so many of these IoT devices. I need to connect to the device for something, or it needs to connect out to the cloud over HTTP or HTTPS, and that's where it falls down. So this is just another case, and like I said, we need to take the next step and get this information embedded in the culture that's creating these devices to fix the problem.
Good luck with that. I mean, I've recently purchased networking gear, and not consumer, but not Cisco or Brocade or anything.
Prosumer,
right? That has HTTP only web interface for management. I recently bought a switched PDU. It's like, oh, really? Cool. HTTP only for things that I plan on using to reboot devices when I'm thousands of miles away. Well, I guess we'll VPN in and not give it a default gateway and do the tricks that like we would do to restrict access to that box.
Right.
But the average, and I don't even say average consumer, right? The average enterprise network people don't have the time or resources, or, you're trying to secure your switch and you're not the firewall guy. How does that work? It's problematic.
And
right?
Jack, that's exactly the conversation I've had with I don't know how many people over the last 6 months is that, well, we've got this device and it's totally insecure, but I'll just do these things to fix it. And I'm like, well, yeah, because you're talking to me. You are likely someone that has half a brain, but you think about the average, and I say you take the average consumer that's putting one of these IoT type devices in their home and they have no fucking clue. But you're putting them on this segmented wireless network that does this and outbound restriction policies, and you can only get to it from these IP addresses. And I'm like, you are not the average consumer,
right?
And to you're not your average network admin.
Yep. Well, unfortunately, that is all the time we have this evening. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to this edition of Security Weekly. Thank our special guest, Dennis Fisher, even, on thewire.io. Of course, you can check out all of our stuff at securityweekly.com. Thank you to Jack, Daniel, and Larry Pesce, as always, for Making it a fun and entertaining show, and thanks to bourbon in old fashions. Larry, take us out.
Over and out. Sorry, I did get a couple beats in there.